This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to be back with you.
And with you.
Man, like the last 72 hours, there's like
Newsy.
5 or 6 potentially above the fold headlines. You know, if I want to use the newspaper vernacular there, speak your language, your love language to
Not
you.
many speak it anymore. It's very good. Very good. Yeah.
So we're going to do this kind of like a Jeopardy game. I'm going to give you some topics, and you pick the topic you want. And that's
Okay.
where we'll go on the question
Well,
here.
what a wonderful opportunity.
So here's our topics for today.
Yes.
Police shooting in Little Rock, hate crime, state flags, and Confederate statues, the hate state, as I call it. Tom Cotton gets his own subject there. The Russian theater, and COVID world.
Yeah.
All right, which one do you want to pick first?
Well, let's start just for my personal interest because of things I've been writing about. Do I pick 2 or just pick 1 right now?
You just pick one right now. We'll get to all of them.
The hate crime, Confederate monuments. That's interesting on several fronts.
So we've had developments here in Arkansas where Governor Asa Hutchinson has basically said, I am supportive of this, and you see some bipartisan support in the legislature, some resistance as well. None of that could happen until next legislative session. You don't think there's going to be anything before then, do you?
Well, that's interesting. There's some people who think maybe so, that maybe there could be a special session and it could be done. There's some people involved in it see that as a potential, as a possibility. So yeah, it could happen before. Certainly the next session, but don't discount the possibility of something before. People who are behind this may have a mild interest in seeing that happen.
What would be the advantage to getting it done early? I mean, what would be the emergency situation?
Politically, I guess. I mean, things are unsettled, and people are concerned about how things are going to play, and politically, and it might possibly have some effect. I can't see much beyond that, but I think there's an interest also in when the iron is hot, strike, and on hate crimes, and on taking down Confederate monuments. These are major deals that are unlikely events in Arkansas, unlikely political actions. And if they ever are going to happen, it would seem to be in the current mood. And should that mood ease, as moods tend to over time, you might lose some of the momentum.
We've seen Mississippi over the weekend get rid of its Confederate symbolism in its state flag. I don't think there's a replacement yet, but there's definitely an abolishment of that actual state flag, which was kind of came from out of nowhere, to be honest with you. I mean, it really moved quickly, as you're talking about. Arkansas also has some symbolism, and is it its state flag? Do you think this is something that could also fold into hate crimes, Confederate statues coming down?
Yes. Let me just say, if this waits till the next session, as it might, this is going to start getting in shape now for covering the next legislative session. I mean, particularly at my age, it's time to go on a diet and get some aerobic work going, because this, first of all, you've got a whole new legislative culture. The state Senate especially has just about had it with Asa Hutchinson. They're just tired of him. They've been around too long, and he's run things through his nephew too long, they think. So there's going to be a lot more scrutiny given to governor's discretion. And then this, as Asa said yesterday on George Stephanopoulos' show, he didn't say, I think we should move that monument on the northeast corner of the Confederate Soldier Monument. He didn't say in those words, but he said, I think they should be moved. Some of them should be moved to less public places where it's more historic rather than generally celebratory. And then he said the legislature will weigh in on that, as I would think that they will. It's hate crimes legislation. It will be difficult before it's over to get that done. It's not an easy thing to do. And then the flag, we already had in the last session, now departed from the legislature, Chief of Staff to the Mayor of Little Rock, Frank Scott, Charles Blake, had the bill to change the symbolism of the stars, representing the governances of the state, and have the Confederacy changed to the Native Americans who were here. And the governor was for that, but it didn't get passed. All of that, cultural, racial, financial, fiscal, viral, it's going to be something. It is truly going to be something.
It sounds like it'll be Martin Luther King Jr., Robert E. Lee holiday separation on steroids.
Times hundreds, yes, yes.
Development over the weekend, we see another police shooting, this time in Little Rock. A little bit different than what we've seen nationally in terms of just an all-out, somebody stepped on someone's neck and choked them out there, but there's certainly a lot of controversy around this police shooting in Little Rock. Does this fold into the conversation about hate crimes? Does this fold into the conversation about police brutality that we've been witnessing for the last month, really, here in the streets of Little Rock?
It certainly folds into it. How much, I'm not sure. It depends on circumstances and obviously how it's perceived. And I don't have a good reading on that, but everything falls into this conversation. I mean, this moment in race in America and in Arkansas as well is one of the darndest things I've ever seen. You remember how the movement on gay marriage took some time, but then happened. It's just happened precipitously on race. And all of this folds into the discussion, and it remains to be seen what our legislature will do and what factors will play. And this shooting, I just don't have a take on it. But this hate crimes legislation, like, you've already got some legislators. I think Jason Rapert is on social media, sort of resisting the idea that some crimes are more hateful than others, or some hate matters more. You know, that argument.
Right.
Then you had this bill done by Senators Jim Hendren and Representative Nicole Clowney, and when I put on the Twitter that they were getting ready to announce it, the legislature sort of in the back had an explosion. Like, wait a minute, you two are doing this? Two white people? What about Senator Joyce Elliott? And then there's this bill includes gender identity and sexual orientation, and the gay community is saying, where are we? And why is this one section in here that says this bill changes nothing regarding other policies? Why do you have to put that in there? Legislating gets very, very hard, and it gets very, very nuanced. So the first 2 days' explosion on that issue was not about resistance from the conservatives to hate crime. It was infighting in the Democratic Party about who's doing this and why and who's the face of it and what does this section mean and what does that section mean. None of that has to do with the police shooting question, because I don't really have a good feel for that. But we're getting ready to have some real politics and some real culture war here.
It's another ingredient in the stew that is
boiling.
Quite a stew.
It is quite a stew.
It is, yeah. All right, let's move on. Senator Tom Cotton.
I didn't get to pick him. You want me to pick him?
Well, you pick the next subject here. We have Tom Cotton, the Russia theater and COVID world.
I'm picking Tom Cotton.
Are you going?
I just wanted to follow the outline of the program.
I'm with you. All right. So Senator Cotton's certainly been making the rounds nationally. My perception is he is trying to stake his position with the existing Trump base before 2024, so that he is somewhat viewed as the potential heir to Trump once Trump is gone from the scene, whether it's in 2020 or 2024. What is your take on the senator's latest moves?
Well, I think you're right. I think he has decided that the post-Trump, the Trump base will still be, if not determinative, very important, and it's there for the taking. And I think he thinks, and I don't think he's incorrect, he's a guy who can do it. Mm-hmm. But he's trying to fashion that as taking the Trump base, but being a little more sophisticated or thoughtful or policy oriented, because he's got some elite bona fides in terms of his background, and so here's what happens: the House passes a bill granting statehood to District of Columbia. I think it's only fair that those 600,000 people be fully enfranchised citizens and get representation to go with their taxation, but the president said, essentially Trump said, when confronted with it, are you kidding? 2 more Democratic senators, 1 more Democratic congressman? Not going to happen. It's one of those cases where Trump is crude and not thoughtful, but completely honest. The whole D.C. state issue, we're not talking about principle here. they're not going to get those 2 senators, is basically what he's saying. I think Cotton feels a need to take that position but lend some sort of policy to it. So he gets up and gives this speech that's going to be remembered, I think, or has been remembered so far, for basically one thing. D.C. shouldn't be a state. You imagine us being surrounded by a state governed by the likes of Marion Barry and this woman now. Wyoming, now there's a state, about the same number of people
They've
as
got
D.C.
miners and loggers and working
he said
people.
They're well-rounded. You know what? They're 94% white in Wyoming. And he said they're miners and they're loggers. He basically was expressing contempt for, no, okay, got to be careful. I don't know if I'm not accusing him of racist. I'm accusing him of extreme clumsiness in what he said, because he seems to be saying the all-white place where they're mining, where they're extracting resources, that's a good state. I'll let them be a state. But if you've got a heavy African-American population and you do a lot of service workers or government workers, you don't deserve a state. You're not well-rounded, which is nonsense. You're actually more well-rounded if your population is 46% white, 46% black, as is the current case in the District of Columbia. So he's being accused of racism. I think he's trying to be the thoughtful Trump, and that's tough.
That's a tightrope walk.
Yeah, it is. But the truth of the matter is what Trump said, and it's what Cotton is saying. And let me get this said, and then you're going to just make everybody mad. Republicans are in control of things because minority rules at the present time in this country. It's simply a fact. The Electoral College is, by having 2 senators go into the Electoral College makeup for every state. Wyoming gets as many as California, which has 80 times as many people. It is weighted for small, rural, mostly white states. The U.S. Senate is even more pronounced. The U.S. Senate, every state getting 2. If you added up all the popular votes for Democrats for the U.S. Senate nationwide and for Republicans, Democrats are well ahead, yet the Republicans have control. Republicans simply depend for control on this weighting system that values small, rural, mostly white states over urban centers of mixed ethnicity. It is simply so. And that's what they're fighting to do. Trump told the truth. Sometimes he will, because he doesn't know any better, but or maybe he does. But Cotton tried to put some policy to it, and I think kind of stepped in it. I mean, to call it a 94% white Western state well-rounded, and Washington, D.C. unsuitable for statehood because of something, not good.
I can't see how you would think any of that you just articulated would be controversial, John. Come on now.
Well, I don't think it's controversial because it's compelling. We've had okay, don't get me wrong, but it's just a matter of numbers, matter of numbers and population distribution. What else?
You're down to your last 2 subjects: the Russia theater or COVID world. They're both big bites. Just pick
well,
one.
we've talked a lot about COVID, and there's a lot to say, but it's not that much new. Let's barge into Russia.
Okay.
Okay, Russian theater.
Over the weekend, the New York Times and other news organizations have later confirmed that apparently Russia was paying Taliban forces for basically American scalps in Afghanistan. There's been some pushback on that from the administration that was not necessarily true, but I think we're going to learn more in the coming days as there's going to be congressional inquiry. And you've even seen on a Monday morning, Senator John Bozeman is saying, we've got to get to the bottom of this. And for him to maybe take a little bit of that stand is just signs that even the Republicans in the U.S. Congress are going to want to know more about this. What's the potential risk, do you think, for President Trump, depending on which way this story may play out?
I think it may hang in the balance. I mean, he's in trouble anyway. I mean, he's polling below 40. He's well behind. All that can change as they attack the Democrats for being socialists and wanting to do away with the police, whatever they end up saying. But this report, what it suggests is if it's true in any respect, there's no way for him out of it. He can say, I didn't know. Well, and then we find out that it was been in intelligence briefings, which he's famous for not reading, or He knew, but he has chosen, he's declined for the administration to presume to do anything about it, to start to do anything about it. He simply is stonewalling that. Is this because of his palship with Putin? I don't know if, well, at this point, let's just say we don't know if it's true. If it's true, I think it takes his, it solidifies his political difficulty. I cannot see him with the virus. These will be famous last words by John Brummett. I cannot see him with the virus, with his, with the race issue and police issue, and the sort of the attack he's taken on that, and if there is truth to the fact that there were that Russia was paying for deaths of American servicemen, and he should have known it or did know it and didn't do and is not doing anything about it, there's no way. That's the prescription for a landslide, even a landslide victory, even for Joe Biden. When I say that with italic, even for Joe Biden. Now, much is yet to be known, but I'm glad to see Senator Bozeman said, let's find out and let's see what happens. And this, really, I mean, of all the things, people saying Trump could get away with shooting somebody on Fifth Avenue, maybe. Can he get away with not seeming to care or do anything if truly warned or advised that Russia was seeking to kill our brave servicemen? I don't think so.
Yep.
I don't think so.
I think at this point in time, the only survival technique for that is that it has to be false intelligence, that
right.
it actually
well, they're starting to warm that
did
up.
not exist, because if it didn't exist, then it has not happened.
Okay.
But
yes, you're exactly right. There is one way out for it to be false intelligence. Now, they're going to say it's false intelligence, maybe, but the hearings, if they're honest and vigorous, will answer that question. But yeah, there is. I mean, if our intelligence community, and who knows, as Trump will tell you, these were the people who had us looking for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, right? So there's that. So that's, it's got to be demonstrably false.
Yeah. Lastly, COVID world.
Oh, we're going to do that
we have
anyway.
Seen everything on the uptick in Arkansas as well as other southern states. Starting to be a lot more pressure. We've seen Texas actually is regressing now some in terms of its opening up for business. Florida closing some beaches down in south parts of Florida there. May see some other states start going backwards too. Do you sense that Arkansas starts ratcheting down some? If you look at it per capita, we are just as much of a hotspot as some of those other bigger states that have bigger numbers per se.
I currently believe it's like Hutchison said on ABC yesterday, well, we're certainly not moving forward, meaning we're in phase 2 and we're not going to go to phase 3. You're asking, I think, basically, are we going to start ratcheting back from where we are? Mm-hmm. Based on the current numbers, woeful though they are, and troubling every day, almost overbearingly so, if they're sort of like this, it's 600 a day, and they can say, well, they're mostly in food processing industry, or there's a lot of prison element, then I don't think so. But this thing, I mean, the epidemiologists will explain to you, if it's out there like that, it's going to be somewhere else, you know. And the slightest evidence that our new practices under phase 2 and bars on Dixon Street and or at the lakes this weekend, if there's any real evidence that is causing the numbers to spike, I think we got to go back. I do. And
that's a tough political calculus.
It's a horrible thing.
For the governor.
It's a very horrible thing. He's always told me, and he's told everyone, I'll let the data and the medical and the health professionals guide me. Okay, well, let's just see. I'm not hoping for that, for goodness knows. I mean, I wish, I mean, maybe this is our biggest problem, and maybe it's contained, and maybe it will begin to wane, and we'll all live happily ever after. But that's a big if right now.
Big if. All right. He is John Brummett with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always good to catch up with you.
Missed you last week. Good to talk to you.
It is good. I look forward to the day we can finally shake hands again. So,
All right.
you know,
Yeah.
all right.
If we feel like it, if we have that regard for each other, we might do that.
Thanks
All
for
right.
being here.
You bet.
That's all for today's program. Thanks for watching.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.